All right, hello. So the situation is okay, first of all, the Republicans won the election. So there's many things that they have their legal right to do that will bother me. Things that will bother me that they have the legal right to do. And I think some of the Democrats should pay attention to the fact that whether they thought Jimmy Dore had a good idea with, at least we would be fighting Trump and we'd let Hillary get away with all this shit, you know, like this deportation. People are acting like, well, we heard Obama also did. Yeah, Obama deported tons of people. These deportations today. Now it's big news because Trump's doing it. Oh, that's unfair to Trump. Well, I'm a political activist that's against that deportation. It's unfair that it wasn't bitched about earlier. Like people didn't even pay attention. If they're going to pay attention under Trump because he's so noxious and easy to react to, good. However, they did win the election and they can do many legal powers. I mean, the president has just an incredible amount of legal power. But we get to watch him for doing illegal things. An election isn't uh, about who gets to be above the law. It might have seemed that way, but that's something that needed to be put a stop to under every president. And liberal activists, the kind that wouldn't vote for Hillary and thought she was a scum and, didn't like the DLC and, thought Gore was too conservative. They liked Nader. Okay, those people consistently haven't liked these police state kinds of actions from the government, right? They have been complaining. They have been fair about it. If anything, they've been unfair to the fact that someone like Obama is probably a lot better than someone like George Bush in certain regards. But then again, maybe not, because the drone bombings continue, all sorts of dark operations and surveillance state shit continues. So we get to watch them for illegal things. Doesn't matter what other presidents have gotten away with illegal things, that'd be all of them. They don't all get away with it, each and every one of them, and many of them are careful to skirt around the edge. And if you're going to dive right in the middle, like Kellyanne Conway endorsing a product as a federal representative, um, that's not what we voted for. And even if we did, it doesn't matter. If everybody voted for some guy if somebody ran and said, hey, it's going to be legal when I'm president to punch redheaded people for no reason, then, or red-skinned people, or orange-skinned people, it wouldn't matter. That wouldn't still not be legal. That person at least would try to have to get a law through, and they wouldn't be able to, not legitimately, because it'd be unconstitutional. It's, democracy isn't about voting. You vote for who you vote for. Some places you can vote for judge, you can vote for president, you can vote for council member. You're not voting for the any of them to be above the law. And when Trump implies that the law doesn't apply to him, for example, conflict of interest, that's like a sheriff saying, well, the law doesn't apply to me because there's nobody in this county that can arrest me. That's not how it works. You are entrusted to enforce those laws. That doesn't mean the laws don't apply to you, obviously. It means we are trying to make a judgment of your character because we're going to have to rely on you to enforce these laws. On yourself, you just have to avoid doing them. Now, the only mechanism to do that is like the city council has to fire that guy or call a special election, right? And in the case of the federal government, there has to be an impeachment. I'm not in a big hurry to do that. However, I do think that Kellyanne Conway needs to have some legal ramifications. And just one time like that's not necessarily the end of the world, but there needs to be some sort of legal ramifications, right? Whether she gets fired or not, separate. She needs to be cited or somehow that needs to be prosecuted. That's not a law I want changed, and the election doesn't get to change it. There is no election to be above the law. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is this culture war aspect. Everybody on the left and right thinks about it, and it's you guys are trying to win the culture war. Well, that takes hundreds of years for the culture to change. As far as that goes, yeah, I'm pretty sure that we're not going back to chains and torture and slavery and women can't drive or vote. I'm pretty sure that comeback is not happening. Now, can some of the things that have been rejected be reaccepted and integrated into wherever we are going? Yeah, that's inevitable. We could join our ideas, like a buddy cop movie, and we're just about to start getting along. That's possible. But I've been trying to do that my whole life with some success on an individual basis. You find conservatives and whatnot that'll work with you to try to, look at both sides, find the common ground, the principles where you can come up with uh, support common causes without, giving up your value system. But I don't find people want to do that. And right now, the right just wants to troll you. It's like, whatever. It's not worth talking to you. We just like making you angry. And I'll still do it because I will feed trolls. But this is why, I mean, I'd like to work it out, but I don't see it working out. It takes two to do that. And even if two people try to do it, maybe there is no solution to it, you know? So maybe that's why they've given up. They realize there is no solution. And that's probably true. They don't want to compromise with the future, with what I see as the future, what I want to be the future. Which is why I say that we have to split up in some sense. Now, I'm perfectly happy to continue just, split the country into two totally separate countries. I think it'd be better to have your crazy ex as a neighbor than to still be living with them. That's just me. But it is also an extreme way. We have a much easier route to take, which is we are a federation. If we reinvigorate or rediscover more federalism, allowing states to have more different laws, I think this would be a good thing. And we've seen this in various areas. The right to suicide. Some states were for that early, other states not so much, and then other states have fallen, one way or the other. They voted on it, they've not passed it, they passed it. Medical marijuana. These are important issues to people that are against it and for it. Let's let states decide those things. I'm for federalism. Then we wouldn't have to split up the country necessarily so much. But we still have some difficulties from my point of view because some of the things that I am most bothered by this country, and there's historical precedents, and we're not the only ones, and blah, da, 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 but I'm looking back at many, many centuries, if not thousands of years of history, and there's some things, the trends to improve these things, to reduce war and how easy it is to go to war. I want to continue those. I do not want to have a war-based international economy where we have to be in perpetual war for 3 more centuries. I think it's possible to get out of that situation, right? But if some people are going to want to go to war and some not, well, I'm sorry, we do the going to war version too often. I'm not happy with that. So it'll be hard to compromise. You want to torture people in other countries if they're not Americans, and if they're enemy combatant traitors, but Americans, you also want to do it. I don't want to do that. That's where just being more federated doesn't quite seem to fit unless we go truly extra steps where, you know, states can send observers uh, and report things. The espionage laws change. Each state gets its own espionage laws so that whistleblowers really are protected in one state and not another. So we could relieve a lot of the tension that way because really, whichever side you're on, you're not going to finish off any sort of war. A presidential election is certainly not. We're not voting on how the culture turns out, um, obviously. And the demographics of liberalism is definitely, the trends of liberalism over the last century and a half. I think it looks pretty good for liberalism becoming entrenched. But it's not like conservatism is going to disappear. And there is room for both of those. Now, in one country, I don't know. But right now, it's not working so hot. It's definitely too tight of a coupling, too big of a country with too many diverse opinions. Because I think it's hard to get more diverse than whether you're for or against torturing your enemies. But they're enemies. Yes, I'm against that. But they're enemies. I know. And there's a million reasons. And you have a million reasons that you want to torture. So, how are we going to work that out? I don't know. But I certainly think it's silly for people of either side or any other sides not named here to think that they're going to win the culture war. I mean, the culture is multiple. It always has been multiple. A single culture has subcultures. There's hobby cultures, there's cultures of every interest group. Regional, based on activity, profession. It's multiple now, it's going to be multiple in the future. There's not going to become one homogeneous culture where everybody just loves violent video games, or everybody just loves knitting, or everybody just thinks the same kind of jokes are offensive. And that's not what I want. I like a cosmopolitan where there's a big patchwork of every kind of thing and its opposite, just no violence. Emotional severity, yeah, up to the point of where you could say that's almost like violence. Yeah, but nobody got hit, no physical violence. Worry and panic about that somebody believes something so surprising to you. Yeah, that I want that in my culture. And some people don't. They want a homogeneous solution, but that's impossible. That's not going to ever happen. And we can't have a civil war and kill each other off and have that work out for either side because you can't kill an idea. And even if you kill a majority or every last one of that other philosophical group that's bothering you so much, in a generation or two, the children that are unhappy in that system, they're going to learn about the alternatives and they'll simply come back. Now, that might buy you a century or two, and if you're willing to kill 150 million people, maybe you're willing to do that. But that gets into the very fact that it's quite unlikely that you will be able to kill that many people. It would be a terrible massacre of epic proportions if you killed 10 or 20 million people in that effort, leaving tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of people left with the other view just madder than before and with more reason. It goes nowhere. It's a ridiculous idea. And if that's a ridiculous idea, then the concept of winning the culture war is also ridiculous. What you need to do is protect the rights of people to have their own culture if they're not violent. And that has to include things they do that you might think, lend to violence, like worshiping in Islam, playing games where you pretend to rape women. A lot of people go, well, that's good, right next to but they didn't do anything violent. So with freedom of art, and they didn't do anything violent, we're going to have a lot of chaotic stuff available in our society, as well as the good old calming stuff, and the stuff in between, like fishing. And we're going to deal with the reality that there's a lot of different kinds of people, and they have a lot of different ways they want to live. So America's done pretty much okay on that in the hobby area. The problem is in killing foreign people and abusing their rights. That's something I'm not happy that my taxes and my dad's taxes, my granddad's taxes and my great granddad's that they had gone to a perpetual war as a sidelight in American history when Americans aren't even really aware of it. Right? They're not cognizant of this history. They might have heard a thing here or there, but they don't know the continuity of it and just how much it's cost us. And when you want to say, well, why are we in danger? Why are we poorer than we should be? And the money's piled up over there, and we're spraying money on a giant credit card to kill people in the Middle East, and we've done all of this stuff all this time. We spent so much money on war, and the reason we're poor is because the people that are victims of those wars want to go somewhere else. I get why you think that. I think you're totally wrong. And we do have to work it out. And if you just say, well, we don't have to work it out, I like annoying you, we'll just do that. Okay, where do you think that goes? Look at history. Yes, there can be civil war and stuff. Do you not want to avoid that, really? Because I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic fiction, science fiction. And, I can wrap my head around trying to survive in the world that's gone shit stir crazy and there's bands of people, some of them want to kill each other. And the fact that there'll be other bands of people that are like, well, we don't particularly want to have a political thing, but this is good cover for having a band of kids. All we have to do is say we're this side or that side. If we're in the right county, boom, we can rob and steal and get away with it. I don't think that's a desirable thing. A lot of conservatives and, comment threads seem to think, well, we've got all the military and the guns and the army on our side, so we could do it. Really? You think you could get all of the military to take part in some kind of suppression like that? Even in the military votes predominantly Republican these days. But do you know what go look what the percentage is. And then look up how many people work in the military and then count how many millions of people aren't voting for Trump in the military. Or not millions, but whatever it is. It's not an insignificant number of people. And a lot of conservatives also are like, we liberals, we're cucks and we're weak. We wouldn't have the guns and stuff. They're also like, but the leftists are the only ones. They're the only violent people in the whole, get that into one package of which you think. Because we need to avoid a civil war. And we shouldn't just indulge ourselves in some sort of trivial pleasure of pretending it doesn't matter. It's American exceptionalism. I can talk my way right up to the edge of civil war. Of course, it's not going to happen. I hope not. Now, having said that, I'm not panicking. I think mostly my life, I see the things that harm the country, both materially and also just because I think they're wrong, like, endorsing torture after all these centuries again. But, and those can happen in both kinds of president, both parties, I mean, and many more than two kinds of president, but both parties. And what mostly in my life is important is what I do and how I react and to the problems and opportunities. A president could totally destroy the economy, but I've never, you know, I still found a way to have a job, when Bush destroyed the economy. I don't see a reason to panic. I'm a little worried because I think that the economy had a better chance of just staying steady with the continuation of the Obama approach. On the other hand, look, I want to change things. I would risk the economy for certain changes. Like if letting immigrants in ruined the economy, I'd be like, well, let's see. So, you know, even if my principle was right, wouldn't mean that my ideal way of implementing it would work out. The world's complicated. It's like a project. Saying you could build a skyscraper in New York doesn't mean you're going to build it the right way and it won't fall down. So I'm not too personally worried. In a way, I'm less worried than I would have been if Ted Cruz was president. Um, so I just think we should take seriously that you're a spoiled brat if you think that this country could benefit in any way by a process of violence. It'll just regress. Violence takes things in the road warrior Somalia direction, right? And we've seen that. We've funded that and seen that happen. So I don't see why you'd want to have it happen. I'm not going to be paranoid about it, but I can tell you I am becoming mentally and to a certain degree physically prepared for if the shit hits the fan in that manner. Because at that point, the smart people have to wait it out. There's no smart person that's going to be making a big difference in that conflagration. It's going to be a bunch of psychotics. And the smartest person will be, the smart serial, psychopath that it's smart and violent. It's not going to be actual smart people that do understand things for the long term, left or right. They're just going to have to try to survive and wait it out. And then there'll be a bunch of crumbs and pieces to start building. It's not a good thing. And Americans are just so self-indulgent with their Hollywood brains that they just don't take it seriously enough to know that they especially do not have the stamina to go through. I mean, the people that are happy that a Nazi got punched or want to see a communist get punched or whatever they want, I don't think most of them are the kind of people that could stomach that sort of thing. They're the people, they won't go into the Coliseum. Uh, they want to be in the audience. But when all shit breaks through, nobody's in the audience. So I wish you'd take it serious. I think it's important to take it serious. And to realize that the fact that the world is getting less criminal, the fact that the world's getting safer, you could travel to more countries than you ever could before. These are good trends. You can't rest on the laurels of them. You can't take them for granted. You have to work to keep them. And you have to work to advance them. Right? And you have to take into account the panicky worries of reactionaries or people that think you're moving too fast. Um, you don't necessarily have to give in to them, though. But I think possibly one solution would just be go to a two-thirds majority. You have to have a two-thirds majority, and you have to, um, build coalitions basically to get that.